a growing scandal involving Prince Harry and his last remaining genuine charity project, the Invictus Games. But is it really a charity project at all? Is it just being used as a money-making scheme? And is Invictus about to join the list of charities, including African Parks and Sent to Bali, that actually will do far, far better with no dodgy involvement from the disgraceful Duke? This is certainly something which is being ignored by the mainstream media. However, there is movement. Look at this from Meg Yacht Grifter, who is now calling on a boycott of the Invictus Games, saying there is something not sitting right with this charity. Charities that have something to hide should not be trusted, especially with so much NGO fraud being exposed in the last few years. And they are calling on Boeing and American Airlines to think twice before donating. When they said Invictus is a scam, the veterans are being used for PR, privately funded faux trips with lavish accommodations and Meghan's merchandising schemes. That's not how charities work. Royal YouTube sensation, according to Taz, added, "This is the very reason why everyone who originally worked on and set up Invictus no longer works there. Since leaving the royal fold, the foundation has become a cash cow for Harry and Meghan, and no doubt some others who are involved. It's all bubbling to the surface." And it is bubbling to the surface thanks to Paula Frolic of Paula Frolic Uncensored. She is our guest today. And through her show at News Nation, she has been able to finally get these funding questions about the $63 million Invictus Games spend into the mainstream media. So Paula Frolic is going to be here to blow the whistle on all of this today. But I just want to start by revealing some of the key lines from Paula's brand new and really jaw-dropping reporting this week. And of course, she's being very careful because we know how litigious Prince Harry can be. But this is really extraordinary stuff. So Paula reports, the most recent games held in Vancouver and Whistler in February 2025 brought together 543 wounded military veterans from 23 countries. The total cost, 63.2 million Canadian, or approximately $118,352 per competitor. For comparison, the US Warrior Games, a similar competition for wounded American service members, runs on roughly $2 million a year. Germany's Invictus-style competition costs about $200,000 and involves half as many participants. The public's taxes footed a portion of the bill. According to tax returns on file, the public picked up half the tab for Vancouver, with the Canadian federal government contributing $15 million through the Veterans Affairs Canada and the province of British Columbia contributing another $15 million through its Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Sport. The remaining funds came from approximately 40 corporate partners and about $2.6 million in individual donations. Crucially, that public money didn't flow directly to the Games. It was routed through the Vancouver-Whistler Games Corporation, which then paid a licensing fee to the Invictus Games Foundation, the British charity that owns and licenses the Games brand. The amount of that licensing fee was oddly redacted. I sense a cover-up. The Invictus Games Foundation, the British charity at the centre of the operation, recently filed its 2024 annual accounts with the UK Charity Commission after a 2-year grace period. The numbers, Paula reports, raised red flags. In 2024, the foundation cut its direct grants to veteran organisations by 63%, from £534,973 to just £200,328. The same year that foundation income rose 41%, a new 6-figure executive role was added, and cash reserves grew to £2.3 million. The foundation's highest paid staff are earned between £120,000 and £130,000 above typical UK charity sector norms. Other interesting things of note, legal fees jumped from £45,000 to £155,000 with no explanation given. Deferred income ballooned fourfold from £431,000 to £1.799 million. An American for-profit company called June's LLC, with no description of purpose, received nearly £30,000 in 2023 and nothing in 2024. And the same filing contains two different company registration numbers, one on the cover page, another on the balance sheet. The foundation publicly claims that 92% of every pound spent goes towards charitable activities, a figure that technically falls within UK Charity Commission guidelines. But the term charitable activities includes the cost of running the games themselves, not direct grants or services to veterans. And the problem is that us here in the UK, us taxpayer fools, are committing funds to this. I can't believe this. Paula reports the next Invictus Games are scheduled for Birmingham in 2027. The UK government has committed up to £26 million in public funds, despite the city effectively declaring bankruptcy in 2023. It only exited that status in February of this year. With roughly 15 months to go, Birmingham has just 11 unnamed sponsors, contributing an estimated £4 million combined. Vancouver, by contrast, had Boeing and Atco as co-presenting sponsors and over 44 corporate partners. So basically, the British taxpayers are footing the bill because no corporates in the United Kingdom want to be involved with Prince Harry, as Dr. Sophie Chandoka of Centre Bali had previously made clear to him. Paula goes on. Meanwhile, as I reported last month, the organisation is in a bit of disarray, and qualified candidates were refusing job offers with the Birmingham organising team after learning it was Invictus, citing the organisation's reputation. Now, of course, Tom Bauer, in his recent book Betrayal, alleged that Invictus funds were directed towards private jets, five-star hotels, and transportation for Harry and Meghan. Paula Frolick, great to have you here on Outspoken. Congratulations on this reporting. And it's looking more and more like a scandal hiding in plain sight that the mainstream media don't want to go near. I mean,
I think they're starting to go near.
Well, good,
I think
good.
they're
So
starting to
tell
go
me,
near.
tell me, why has this
I'm
been
here.
covered up until now?
I think it's people get freaked out by tax returns, and I also think sometimes people are a little bit lazy. They hear things, they say, "Oh, Invictus Games, for Wounded Warriors," which sounds like the Wounded Warrior Games, and people think, "Oh, this must be great." And a lot of people are unclear how to read a tax return or to check stats. And so I think it was just very easy to say, "Oh, the Invictus Games, it's great. It does all this." And then you start looking into it and you're like, hey, what the heck is going on here? Those 535 competitors had to pay their own way. They had to pay their own housing for the games. They had to pay for their own equipment. And Harry and Meghan got a really nice vacation out of it with lots of adorational speeches and clapping and crowds gathered for them. So it was really odd, but I do think that people are starting to cotton on. Again, when we look at the numbers of corporate sponsors lining up for Birmingham, there really aren't that many, and we don't know who they are. Only 11. Now, Boeing has, I believe, cut ties. I am doing that story for News Nation. It'll come out later today about how Boeing was the huge sponsor. The contract has ended, and they are not re-signing. So Harry has to go to Birmingham this summer. He has to drum up some sort of business because at this point, A, it's just embarrassing. And B, yes, government funds are supposed to cover about half, but the other half are supposed to come from private companies and private individuals. And nobody's dropping a dime anymore because they are also saying, how come this costs so much money? And also, the other thing is you have to understand other people aren't showing up. People are not coming to watch these games. They are volunteers who outnumber not only competitors, but everyone else by like 5 to 1. It's kind of absurd. And as Tom Bauer pointed out in his book, during an absurd wheelchair basketball game, one team didn't even need wheelchairs, while the other team did. It was America versus Nigeria. Nigeria needed the wheelchairs, and after the game, the Americans all stood up, got out of their wheelchairs, and walked off. It's absurd. But also, there was no one in attendance. Harry and Meghan came in for 10 minutes for an adoring love shot, and of course, Meghan kissed Harry. And it looked like it was good and full. It wasn't. So I think the public interest is waning. And also in this time of economic disparity, people really want to know where their money is going to. And there are lots of other places that actually support veterans, may give them prosthetics if they need, may build a wheelchair ramp at their home, which is necessary, may do things that really help people as opposed to helping Harry's ego.
Well, exactly, because Paula, seriously, think about this. If you asked all of those competitors at the Invictus Games,
Mm,
what is more important here? You could get a check today for $120,000, which would transform your life, or you could be part of what is effectively a PR stunt. I mean, all of those details and betrayal were just so damning. Like
mm.
the audiences were basically shipped in to sit around Harry and Meghan to make it look as if it was a popular event, whereas actually there were just a handful of people watching most of the games. As you say, a lot of these competitors were not in their wheelchairs, and apparently, Paula, you're totally un-PC if you point that out, because some of them may have mental scars. But I'm sorry, that was never my understanding of what the Invictus Games was about. You know, if
Yeah.
that's the case, why is Harry not competing himself? Because trust me, he's mentally scarred for a whole load of reasons. You know, it's
Well,
like,
also, yeah, look at the Paralympics, right? They don't let, I am not diminishing PTSD at all. But again, those funds could have really gone for PTSD help. They
yes,
could have gone for a lot of other
because
things that
PTSD
would
doesn't
actually,
impact how you physically compete. That is
right,
the critical difference here.
right, exactly. And it's putting people on different scales, and also it's not supporting the Nigerian wounded. So it was really interesting, if you will. And by interesting, I mean gag inducing. But I am hearing some other rumbles from inside the Invictus Games Foundation itself that they are trying to keep it together through Birmingham. And then there may be a bit of a kind of a blow up. It is very difficult because Harry has gotten rid of people at places like the Invictus Games Canada.
For years, the Invictus Games have been presented as a symbol of resilience, a sporting event celebrating wounded and injured military veterans from around the world. It has also been Prince Harry's signature charitable projects. But now, serious questions are being raised about where the money is going and whether the Games are still serving veterans first. According to recent reporting by journalist Paula Froelich, the 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver and Whistler cost approximately 63.2 million Canadian dollars to stage. With just 543 competitors from 23 countries, that works out to more than 118,000 Canadian dollars per participant. Critics argue those figures are difficult to justify, especially compared to similar events. The U.S. Warrior Games reportedly operate on around $2 million annually, while Germany's comparable competition costs only a fraction of the Invictus budget. The funding is another source of debate. Canadian taxpayers reportedly contributed $30 million, split between the federal government and the province of British Columbia. The remaining money came from corporate sponsors and private donations. However, questions have been raised over how some of that money moved through different organizations before reaching the Invictus Games Foundation. One particular licensing fee reportedly had its value redacted in public documents, fueling speculation about transparency. The Invictus Games Foundation's financial filings have also attracted attention. Reports indicate that direct grants to veteran organizations dropped by more than 60%, while the foundation's income increased, cash reserves grew, and executive salaries remained substantial. Legal expenses also reportedly rose significantly during the same period. None of these figures automatically prove wrongdoing. Charities often have legitimate operational expenses. However, critics argue that the balance between administration and direct support for veterans deserves closer examination. Another issue generating discussion is sponsorship. The 2027 Invictus Games in Birmingham are expected to receive up to £26 million in UK public funding, despite Birmingham having faced serious financial difficulties in recent years. At the same time, reports suggest that only a limited number of corporate sponsors have committed funding so far, raising concerns about whether private companies are becoming less willing to associate themselves with the event. According to Paula Froelich, some potential employees have even declined positions connected to the Birmingham Games because of concerns surrounding the organization's reputation. There are also ongoing allegations, repeated by author Tom Bauer, that previous Invictus funding was used to cover luxury travel and accommodation for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. These allegations remain disputed and have not been established in court. Beyond the financial questions lies a much bigger one. Is the Invictus Games still primarily about veterans, or has the event become closely tied to the public image of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? Supporters argue that Harry deserves enormous credit for creating an event that has inspired thousands of wounded service personnel around the world. Critics counter that too much attention now focuses on the Duke and Duchess rather than the athletes themselves. Some have suggested that if millions of pounds are available, veterans might benefit more from year-round support, including mental health services, prosthetics, rehabilitation programs, accessible housing, and employment assistance, rather than a sporting event held every 2 years. Ultimately, these are questions that deserve open discussion rather than political or media silence. The Invictus Games remains an important institution for many veterans, but as public funding increases and financial scrutiny grows, calls for greater transparency are likely to become louder. Whether this develops into a larger controversy or leads to meaningful reforms remains to be seen. One thing is certain: the conversation surrounding Invictus